Hello and welcome to part 4 of the series of tutorials on making comics with 3D software. In this part I'll be making a quick thumbnail in Photoshop, then going into Daz Studio, building the scene, adding the characters and then putting the page together in Photoshop. This thumbnail is very basic. The first panel is of a bus stop with two people at it, one walking towards it. There are 4 panels of faces showing their faces during conversation, and the last panel is a leaving shot when a bus pulls up to the bus stop. Very simple, not much of a story to tell really, but it will do for the purposes of this tutorial. I have tried to make this tutorial with free products, so you won't be required to buy anything to recreate the scene should you wish to follow through. I'm including links for all the products in below the video. Have a look, and there will be some other ones there that I think people might find useful. The first prop I'm adding into the scene is one I created a couple of years ago. It's available on Renderosity, again link below the video. It's a rural bus stop. Figured it's perfect for the scene I'm making. Once downloaded and put into Daz Studio, you'll find it under Daz products. It'll be under My Library, and then Environments and Architecture Gene Joke Rural Bus Stop. Then simply load it into your scene. Now this prop isn't set up with iRay materials. If you're using 3Delight, that won't be a problem. To add to the bus stop, as there's nothing real but really behind it, I've included a link for some free trees I created for this tutorial, or you can go onto other sites and find free trees that you can download. Once you have your trees, whether it's my free trees or some others sorted, load them into your scene. In this case I have created 3 simple tree props. They're not really good for close-ups, but for background they'll be perfectly sufficient. I've loaded them in one of each and then use instancing. If you've downloaded my free trees, they'll be under My Library in the Daz products. Then under Props, Gene Joke, Free Trees, you'll find them there. In case you don't recall, if you go to select the object, go to create new node instances, select the quantity that you like, quantity of copies that you would like, and then it'll create the copies into the scene. Each of those can be rotated and scaled and moved as you like. So you can add a bit more variety, or the illusion that there's more different trees than there actually are. You'll notice that on this scene I'm putting trees where there isn't any ground. That's something that I will rectify further in the video. The process I went through, I originally thought I'd just add a simple plain, colour it green, and that would do. Something actually abandoned further in, as it wasn't looking right for me. In hindsight, what I might have been better to do is had the trees much more closely bunched together, and then to create the illusion of it's such a dense wood that you couldn't see through it, therefore eliminating the need for too much of a background behind it. The intention I had was to create the scene, have a limited background, and then composite over other images to create the background, which again I do to a degree, but it makes it more work the way I've done it. Now here, because the rural bus stop isn't set up with iRay materials, I've selected all the materials on it, gone to Content Library, my Daz 3D library, gone down to Shader Presets, iRay, selected iRay Uber Base, double clicked on both. That gives it the iRay material presets. I've then gone down to glossy colour with them all selected and put it to black so it doesn't have that horrible sheen glossy look. So here I've realised that I'm going to need a bit more road and pavement for the establishing and final shots. So what I've decided to do, rather than trying to use planes and things to extend it out, as that wouldn't work because the road of the rural bus stop model isn't flat. It's not straight edges, it has curves and camber on the road. So I've made a copy, I've loaded in another copy of the rural bus stop, done the material settings, and then I've hidden all the items of the actual bus stop itself, leaving just the road section, and I've then moved it across to an approximate placement on the right, then create an instance and put it on the left hand side of it, place them as well as I can. They don't fit perfectly because it wasn't designed to be modular. However, it's close enough, and I can, with a little bit of post work in Photoshop, I can tidy up where the edges don't quite meet perfectly in the little caps that appear, as I'll show you later on in the video. With the main background scene completed, I've saved it, and I'm now going to create the figures themselves, the characters for the story. I'm using the Genesis 8 male and female figures for this. First of all, I'll load in the two base figures, and I use some props that come with DAZ Studio, such as the Armani hair for the Genesis 8 male, and I believe it's the Toulouse hair for the Genesis 8 female. And then I've go to some downloaded free props there that I've gotten from various sites, and use those. There's a black dress I've gotten from Renderosity, again link below the video, and I'm using trousers from a Sandman outfit, also on Renderosity on the free section, and again link for that below. And then I'm filling those out with other bits. The shoes for the Genesis 8 female I used in the video paid for ones, however in the links below there are prop sets with shoes in there. The male other bits I use are ones that are included with the set. I do a bit of morphing and slight tweaking of the characters. Now some of the bits I use I believe are from paid for sets, however there are included in the links to Sickle Yields morphs, which will give you plenty to work with for customising your characters as you see fit. While it's true that a lot of free stuff that you'll get for DAZ and Poser and things won't be as high quality as the stuff that you'll be able to purchase, there are some exceptions. Some are absolutely fantastic, given away for free. With some freebies, it might be that the modelling is quite good, it just doesn't have the range of adjustments and morphs that a paid for product would. Other times it's simply the textures aren't as good, but those can be swapped out, or you can use shaders on them and things. And also those ones may come in handy even if they're not as good. They're not good for close-up shots. If you're having characters in the background and things like that, then they could come in useful. All things are worth bearing in mind when looking at downloading products. Once the characters were complete, I then selected Merge Scene and loaded in the background that I'd completed. Now, if you're creating scenes and merging them, if you have lights loaded into the scene, then it's worth bearing in mind if you have them loaded into both scenes, when you merge it, both sets of lights will be there, which will double the amount of lighting you have. This isn't an issue if you're using Iray with the dome lighting, that won't be copied, but the individual lights, like the distant lights, spotlight things, those can be copied across. So now the scenes are in the figure, it's a matter of placing them where I want them and posing them for the first render. I went through various poses. Some of the ones I used were paid for ones, and you may not have those, so you might need to pose them manually yourself. Again, there are poses free to download. Again, there'll be more in the links. I noticed the bricks were rather flat, so I went down on the surfaces. I went down to base bump and changed the settings there. Scaled it up, noticed the bricks were inverted. So with that, I clicked the cog on the right hand side of where the base bump is, went to parameters and clicked off where it says use limits, then put the bump as a minus figure, which then made the bricks look as they should, giving a nice effect from the bump map. This is something that I'll go into in another video. As I had the camera on the male character, I decided rather than move it to do the first panel with the female character, I'll do the next panel with the male character, so adjust his expression and his pose to kind of give off the hostility vibe. And there I've tweaked his expression using the power pose function, and that if it doesn't show up on your tabs, go to Windows, Panes and select power pose from there, and then dock it to wherever you want it on the screen. The dots that appear on the image of a pitch there represent a bone. As you move click on them and move around, you can then manipulate the figure in the scene, or if you're selected on the face, you can move the facial muscles. So with that rendered, it was then going on to the female character and doing the posing and expressions for her. It occurred to me on doing this, because the position she's in, I would need a background beyond that little bit of road I had done. So I selected a village high street prop. Again, link for that will be in the description below. And this is quite a large set. It's not set for iRay materials, so I had to do that as with the rural bus stop. It's also set centrally, and all the individual buildings and ground are separate objects. And if I move, I can't move them together. So I selected all of those, then went up to create, selected create group, and that put them in a group. Then in the scene tab, I could select the whole group and move them in unison, making moving it to the correct place a lot easier. And here it became apparent that the curvature of the ground of that prop was a bit too extreme. So what I did is select the ground on the village high street set and scaled it on the y-axis, reducing the amount of curvature to make it more realistic. Normally this might present some issues because I'm adjusting the scale of things, so how it interacts with the other object could be an issue. However, because it's in the distance, it wasn't an issue for me in this case. Then it's on with posing and rendering her, and I did notice during this stage that because of where I'd positioned the light when the man was seen and making sure his face was lit, the sunlight was behind her, leaving her face very dull. So I've altered the lighting. Well, it's perhaps a bit less convincing, but I altered the lighting to give me a better look on the scene. This is something you wouldn't have a problem if you're using spotlights and things. If you have greater control over your lights, but as I'm using the sun and sky only, it creates a realistic light effect. And on the downside is, if you have people positioned in a place where the sun wouldn't be on their face, it won't be on their face. I should mention that the posing and expressions I've done here I'm not aiming for perfect, just close enough. When doing the crossed arm pose, I figured, well, I'm shooting mainly her head and her shoulders, so as long as I keep the camera above her arms, it doesn't matter that her arms aren't actually crossed properly, just giving the impression of it. Again, with the posing and the expressions, I use a mixture of pre-made poses and tweaked them slightly with using the power pose function. So right here I was looking for a pose with crossed arms for gender safe female, didn't find one, which is when I resorted to cheating and just doing a sort of close enough pose. In a moment I'll use power pose again. As I mentioned before, that's under Windows Panes, and there'll be power pose in there and you can dock it to the side. That's if it's not already showing in the tabs. It's very handy for manipulating characters without using sliders or without doing it in the scene. When you click on the face and you have to control the muscles there, just below it will show you exactly what certain movements do. Pressing which mouse button and moving in which direction will affect which muscles. Quite a handy tool for doing your expressions. For the mouth position, as if to show the way she's speaking, I've used the Vasenes, which is under parameters, posing, and it's at the bottom there. And there are certain sounds like ah, eh, oh, and the lips will go to that expression along the slider, and that can be quite useful for giving the impression of speaking and the right sort of sounds that you might want to represent. And with the final close-up done of the female, and I had all ones done of the male, for the last panel I need the bus to come and collect them. Now that's one of the ones I didn't have a free one to do, so I've used a bus purchased from DAS 3D. However, in the links below I've included a coach model, but again, might be close enough. I'm sure you could find some elsewhere as well. There's plenty of places where you can get 3D models done as in OBJ format and import those, as showed in one of the earlier videos. I believe it was part 2. Initially, I was hoping that I'd be able to place the bus in, and that because of the reflection on the glass that I wouldn't need a driver. That later proved not to be the issue, and I had to figure in, but that's a little bit further in. Now the materials I want to load in weren't for iRay, so I added those in afterwards. Again, there's a preset for that because it's an item purchased from DAS 3D. And Normally I would have tweaked the model if it's for my own thing, because it's clearly a London bus and it has has Trafalgar Square on it, and it's clearly not on a bus route that's likely to go to Trafalgar Square. So I might have changed that, but for the sake of this I didn't bother, just being brutally honest there. I did look at changing the how shiny the bus was. However, the material settings and everything on the way the bus is laid out would have been too much effort. It wouldn't have been like a quick job. It would have taken a little while to work out what material settings refer to which exact piece, and doing everything and making sure I get all the right bits would have been a bit of a pain, so I decided not to do it. It was good enough. So then it was a matter of posing the characters. I found a post that was close enough for the man to have him waving down the bus, and with the girl I decided I'd just be lazy and have her turned away with her arms crossed, so I just need to move her without changing the pose. Pure laziness, but I think I've shown enough posing that for this tutorial. I will do a more in-depth tutorial on posing and some of the tools you can use to make your life easier on that, but that'll be in another video. For the driver, knowing I would need a detailed model, I decided to load in Genesis 2 Mail. Now, to reduce the effect on the amount of RAM and that being used by the computer, once I had him loaded in, I went to parameters. Under general, there's a section where it says mesh resolution, and I took that from high resolution down to base. I also did that on the two main figures as well, because they're on distance shots. They wouldn't show the slightly harsher edges on the models, and that just saves a little bit of memory if you've got a lot going on in your scene. And with the driver, all I did was add a t-shirt to him, put him in a sitting pose, placed him, and then use power pose to move the arms slightly to make it look like he's driving. And with the glass, the slight reflection on it, it looks like there's someone there, but you can't really see enough detail to see exactly who it is, or the fact he doesn't actually look like he's dressed like a bus driver that much. Once the final render was complete, it was a matter of taking the saved renders I had and taking them to Photoshop, and then modifying them, adding the backgrounds and all the bits that weren't rendered, and then putting them onto over the thumbnail to create the page. First, I used the spot healing brush in Photoshop to cover all the seams and the slight gaps between the road surfaces from where I'd copied the ground and the road section from the rural bus stop prop. Once I did that, I copied a piece of the grass of the terrain from the main image, enlarged it, slightly tweaked it, moved it around, and put it on the layer behind the main image. I then used that to fill out the ground where there's trees that are floating. Now, because I enlarged it and it's further back, it's obviously the details were larger. So I put a Gaussian blur on it, which is under filters, blurs, Gaussian blurs, set it to the desired amount, and that's my background terrain sorted out. Of course, it still doesn't look right. There would still be more you could see beyond the trees. So I ended up taking copies of parts of the trees, resizing them, cutting them, putting on layers behind, giving another blur on them to make it look more busy before I put a sky image behind it to kind of give the impression of a fairly dense forest or woods behind the bus stop. When I say sky image, it wasn't. I just used a slightly blued white, very pale, and did that behind just to give the appearance of lights coming through the trees. The overall effect isn't brilliant, but with more time and care, I could have done much better. I could have added other effects in to do it, whether it's sort of a mist effect, more effective blurring. But if I'd planned the original scene better, I could have done more of a job with it. Like if I'd had a fence behind the bus stop, giving a very definite line, then whatever I composited behind it would have looked more natural. So with a lack of thought, I made life more difficult. With the next image, I grabbed a photo of a sky. It didn't quite match the lighting I was going for, but again, it was good enough for the sake of this video. Again, the more care you take with matching the lighting and things, the better you'll do, or the more convincing it'll look. I also added a bit of blurring in places just to mask the sort of shortcomings of the render of the background. Like on the village behind, the ground is maybe a bit too green, and the look of the clock on the church isn't brilliant. So again, a bit of blurring masked that a little bit. And with that done, I'll place those into the scene. I could see that I'd probably need to resize things and play with it a bit, but I want to get all the images done before I finalise an exact size of each panel and everything. With the final panel, I used some of the same sort of tricks I've used on the other ones, just to give the impression that the ground goes on for a bit further than it does. It's not perfect, I'd say it's far from perfect, but again, it just shows you techniques you can use. And what really bothers me on that last image is that horizon sort of ends too soon. It looks like you could do with something else behind the bus and where the train ends. Just something in the distance blurred off, not very detailed, but it just needs something. I mean, the end result of these pages, the backgrounds don't look fantastic, but you've seen how quickly they're cobbled together. With a bit more planning about where the render ends and what you might composite behind it, or you might render the background separately and then composite all together. I say a bit more planning, a bit more forethought, I say a bit more detail. It can go a long way. You can end up with a fantastic looking image that doesn't look unnatural at all, or it doesn't look like it's separate images put together. Can look very convincing. Again, this is something I'll go into more in depth in another video. Again, it'll be a very well thought out process. I'll explain the exact thinking behind each step I do in it. Again, this is more of an overview video, just showing how quickly you can do things and what you can do with it, and what techniques you might use to get around such problems. So after that, I then went and sorted out the layout of the page. Just resize things. Again, it's not a very dynamic or exciting page. It doesn't need to be. And for the borders between each panel, I just used the rectangular selection tool, placed it, copied it, filled it. And once I had all the borders put in place, I then selected the layer, selected blending options, added a stroke just to give it an outline. Very simple. I'll do a very similar technique for the speech bubbles, as you'll see shortly. When I started making this page, I had no real script written. I didn't have a script written, I just had a vague concept in mind that a guy would be sitting at a bus stop, will come along, he'll make some sort of lewd comment, she'll be offended, he'll get angry that he's been rejected and be rude, she'll be more offended, call him an arsehole or something, and then the bus will come along and they'd get on it, or he'd get on it. That's it. Very simple, just a way of showing how to put a page together, then how to put it together in Photoshop, add the speech bubbles, or the technique I use. I mean, there's bound to be loads of other techniques you can use, but this is the basic process of what I use. I won't go into the details of making speech bubbles or what fonts to use and things like that, but obviously just select the text tool, make sure it's on the text is center aligned, type out your text, try and keep itself into a nice bubble. Pretty straightforward stuff. And so for the actual making the speech bubbles, my process is I use the elliptical selection, I'll flood fill it, and then I'll go to transform and warp, and then I'll just reshape it slightly so it doesn't look like a perfect ellipse. It just looks maybe a bit more natural, a bit more hand drawn. And then for the tail, I use the pen tool, and I'll click within the about the middle of the bubble, click near the head, then sort of close to the original click in the middle of the bubble, and then click on each of the lines and curve them, and then from there it will obviously fill the tail. Then I'll just go to the layers tab, select the layer of the pen image drawing, whatever it's called, you call that layer, right click it and merge down, and then it becomes part of the layer with the speech bubble on it. Job done. Rinse and repeat wait until all your things are done, and then when they're all done, I'll then right click it, go to blending options, add a stroke layer, and that'll just put a black outline on it. Well, as long as you have black selected as your colour, or whatever colour you might want. Well, that's about all I have to say on the video, really. I hope it's been helpful, at least seeing how a page might be put together and a few of the techniques you can use, and just putting together some things I've shown in the other videos to tell an overall story. Okay, I'm not sure what the next video will be exactly. Possibly more in depth on posing, it might be material settings, and I do intend to go into customising characters more, customising textures, and really going into the features of DAZ Studio a lot more in the coming videos. The next few will definitely be more like the other ones, taking a feature, going in depth on that, and hopefully I'll be able to show you a lot. And even if you're maybe familiar with DAZ Studio, you might find things you can that you can pick up or that you hadn't seen before, or even just alternative methods of doing things. Who knows? Anyway, I think that's about it for now. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. I'd say cue outro, but I'm pretty sure my timing's a little bit off here somewhere.